Hi, everyone. So, good afternoon. Welcome to the OVS VAP Training Center webinar, Managing Yourself Remotely, Time and Task Management. I'm Blake Cush, Director of Training and Outreach for OVS. Like we've said before in a couple of these, we really understand that your programs are under unique forms of stress during this time, and today's webinar is the third in our new Resilience webinar series, which was developed with the goal of helping you tackle some of those pressing issues. So a full list of those upcoming trainings in the Resilience webinar series is on your screen coming up, and there it is. And it's also available online on our website at ovs.ny.gov/training. Each webinar, including today's, is being recorded, and links are made available on that same training page or can also be accessed via our OVS YouTube training channel. We'd also like to take this time to remind you that we're offering increased access to our consultants from the OVS Training Technical Assistance Request Program, or TARP, through individual and small group coaching sessions. Again, you can learn more about that and access more of those free resources on that same training webpage, also on your screen. As soon as you exit today's webinar, you'll be directed to an evaluation survey on the presentation. Please take a couple minutes to give us feedback. We took feedback from our last webinar last week and have already implemented it into today. So these are valuable tools for us, and they really only take about 4 or 5 minutes of your time. So please, if you can, take a couple extra minutes to do that for us. We appreciate it. So today's webinar is led by Ginny Amstutz of JA Strategies and Alan Krieger of Krieger Solutions. Both Ginny and Alan have more than 40 years of combined experience in consulting and training, working with nonprofits and agencies around the state of New York. Both Ginny and Alan also have served as executive directors in nonprofit organizations and have master's degrees in management. They're also our Training Technical Assistance Request Programs lead consultants, and I'm happy to finally introduce and formally welcome Ginny and Alan for today's webinar.
Thanks, Blake. Good afternoon, everybody. Look forward to talking with you about time management, a challenging topic. We have a lot of folks on the line, and we'd like to encourage you to engage with us. So the best way to do that will be through the chat box. I want to make sure everybody has that open. If you look at the bottom of your screen, if you move your cursor over, there should be a little menu that looks something like what you see above. There's a little round circle. One of the icons has a little bubble inside of it. It's either gray or blue. It's blue when you have it open, and it's gray until then. So if everybody could just click on that, make sure it's open. You'll see it open on your right as it shows on the slide up there. And there's a to box, and if you could set, and there's a drop-down menu. So if you could set that to be to all panelists, that way your comments and questions will be sure to be seen. Various ones of us are monitoring it at any one time. So if it goes to all panelists, we'll be sure to get it. Okay, and just leave the chat box open, so as you have questions, you could type it right in. You don't have to go through opening it again. Let's get started. Our goal today is to help you create a comfortable workspace and an efficient strategy for working from home. We've all been at it for a while now, and it looks like we'll be at it for a while longer. Despite news about opening up, I think this will be the new normal for a while. So how do you make this more comfortable? We'll discuss some tips for creating a space and process that balances home and work demands. Many of you are working from a space that was not designed for work, so it may take some creativity to build a temporary workspace that works best for you. We have some ideas about factoring in your personal energy flow when creating a daily schedule to help you maximize your success. It's easy to get distracted or lose focus when working from home. No one can get everything done, so one key to effective time management is prioritizing what's really important and then protecting your time to get these done. To do that, you'll need to track and monitor your use of time and find ways to limit interruptions and other time stealers. Protecting your time is always a challenge, and working remotely adds another level to that challenge. To get us started, we'd like to get a sense of your biggest time management challenges right now. In a minute, a poll will open on the right side of your screen. Please review the list of challenges and select up to 3 of your biggest challenges. Feel free to add any additional ones to the chat box on the right. You'll see at the bottom of the poll a submit button. So when you've selected your 3, hit submit. And you've got about 45 seconds to finish up the poll. If you do want to add to the chat box, you'll have to first close the poll. So hit submit. And then when you're done, there's a X in the upper corner there. You can hit that X. It'll close the poll and reveal the chat box, and you can type in any additional thoughts or comments you have. 10 seconds, so finish up. If you haven't hit submit yet, please do it now. The poll is closed. Okay, in a minute, we're going to see the results of the poll. Okay, there we are. So the biggest one is in the middle there, difficulty being focused for a full day. And yeah, that's a huge challenge with maybe distractions at home, or if you live alone, just the idea of being alone all day and trying to focus is hard. So we're going to talk about that. And getting distracted by the news, by social media, by mail, email, all kinds of things come in. So those are our two biggest ones. And the first one, interruptions from others in your house, is also a pretty big one. And we had almost 2/3 of you respond, which is great on short notice like that. So we're going to cover all these challenges, but we'll focus especially on the ones that you've highlighted there. And Jenny, were there any things in the chat box?
There were a few others that were in the chat box. So the phone is a big distraction for at least one of our participants. So that's a distraction. Constant emergencies. So we're putting out a lot of fires right now, and that can be a distraction from from our regular responsibilities. These new emergencies that are coming up. Additional work training requirements on top of normal work group responsibilities. So we definitely appreciate your coming in on this one, and hopefully at least this training will help you think a little bit more about how you manage your time. But as others are added on, I know that can take some focus away from what people are doing. Those are the three that we saw there. And unless anybody else has any others, I think we'll continue on. So thanks everyone for participating in the poll. We're going to start first by talking about your workspace at home and how you might be able to create a workspace that works for you. Some of you might be lucky enough to already have an office set up at home. Maybe you have been able to work from home periodically, so you had an office set up that worked for you. But for most people, creating a place within our homes, a place that we're actually comfortable conducting our regular jobs full time, that's a new experience for us. And so even though we're already more than a month into sheltering at home or working from home, I think it's worth a few minutes talking about ways you might alter where you're working within your home to make it more comfortable and efficient. So the first thing to do is walk around your home apartment and look at your current workspace from several angles. I want you to think a little bit about noise. So your mics are sensitive, and when you aren't speaking, they search for other sounds to pick up. So that might be kids in the next room or noise from the street. Think about whether in the space you're using, you can eliminate or muffle sounds. If not, think about keeping your mic close to your mouth and using the mute button when you're not speaking. If you are lucky enough to have already purchased headphones with a microphone, consider using those for calls. I do know that I tried very hard to buy new ones when we started this pandemic working from home, and they're very hard to find right now. But if you can get your hands on some, those are great. Next thing, think about things in your homes that might be distractions. Are there things in your space or in your home in general that might pull you away from your work? So we're all distracted by different things, maybe the TV or the refrigerator, maybe other people. I have a dog that distracts me because she's constantly looking for attention. So think about where your workspace is in proximity to those things and whether or not you're going to be distracted by them. When you're considering where you're going to work, think about the other people who are sharing your home. Where are the things that they may need or want during the day? And is there a lot of traffic in certain spaces in your house? So in the kitchen, through one of the living spaces, is that a busy spot in your house? And then finally, I want you to think a little bit about the view. Because we're suddenly conducting so much of our work by video conference, we need to be aware of what others will see through the camera. So when we choose a workspace or a video conferencing space, we need to think about what's behind us. So if there's a window behind you, you might be backlit and your face will appear dark. Or if your desk is up against a wall or in the one end of a room, people will see everything behind you in the room. If there's a lot going on behind you, it might be distracting for the people on the call. So once you've taken that all into account, it's time to create a defined workspace that will best meet your needs. Now, I know there are a lot of things on this list that I'm about to talk about, and some of the suggestions might be impossible based on either the setup of your home or even the availability of supplies. So you might not be able to do all of them, but this will at least give you a starting place and a few ideas. First, it's important that you designate a specific work zone in your room, even if you need to reclaim the space during off hours, especially if you're using a dining room table or part of your bedroom. But if you're jumping from spot to spot instead of picking one specific workspace, it's much easier to get distracted by other things, maybe dishes or counter clutter, and soon enough you'll find you're not going to be in the mood to work at all. So for that reason, a dedicated work area is going to help you be successful and make you feel like you're at work when you're in that space. Next, we all know that our mood can be affected by our surroundings, so try and use nature and lighting to help make your space more pleasant. If possible, find a spot near a window. This will help you feel like you're still part of the world. It will also help to provide natural light. If you cannot set up near a window, you can use lamps to ensure that you have enough lighting in your space, or think about which parts of a room might be lighter. If you have plants in your home, you can bring them into your workspace to give you a sense of nature. And a personal item or two within view of your workspace can also make you happy and reduce stress. That said, you want to be organized, so you don't want to bring too many personal items into your space, especially if you're easily distracted. You don't want to let bills and home paperwork get mixed up with your work papers, because those can easily sidetrack you from being productive. If your work is in a communal area, like the kitchen or dining area, then you might need a well-organized bag or box to keep supplies, writing utensils, and other office items. This way you're organized, but you can easily move things out of the way if you need to. If you have them available, use baskets or bins to keep files organized. If you don't, and you are ordering things from Amazon, try and keep a box or two, and you can use those to double as file bins. I don't know what it's been like where you are, but the last few days have been pretty wintry and cold where I am. We know soon enough, though, that the weather hopefully will turn and things will get warm and maybe even steamy. So make sure you think about the ventilation in your space. What is the airflow like in your space? If we are still working from home come June and July, how hot and sticky are you going to be? Think about choosing a space that will get a cross breeze, or if you can't do that, think now about locating a fan to improve ventilation. Finally, make comfort a priority. Many of us may be missing the great computer desk or comfortable chairs that we left behind in our regular offices. Think about how you might be able to replicate those in your house. On the next slide, we have a few suggestions that will help you think about the ergonomics of your workspace. Ergonomics is about designing and arranging the things that we use so that we interact with them most efficiently and safely. Most of the furniture we have at home is designed for a function different than typing away at a keyboard. So we might need to think about altering things that we're using in order to improve their ergonomics. First, think about the chair that you're using. Does it have good support? What is your posture when you're sitting in it? Are you slumped or are you sitting up straight? If you have a choice between chairs, try a few out to see which support you better. If your back is not supported by any of them, you can think about using a towel or a pillow at the base of your spine for lumbar support. Next, your computer should fit. Your monitor should be eye level so you're not straining your neck. This will also help make sure that on video conferences, people are looking in the eye instead of up at your nostrils. I have commandeered a small box and I have my monitor sitting on top of that to make sure it's at the correct height. When you type, your arms should be at right angles. If you've ever shopped for a computer desk, you know that many of them come with keyboard drawers that you can put your keyboard in. This puts the keyboard at a slightly lower angle or lower level so your arms and your wrists are not raised when you're typing. Most of our dining tables and chairs are not set up that way, so if that's what we're using for our space, or for our desk area, you might need to either find a taller chair or consider sitting on a cushion so that you're raised up a little bit. Finally, keep your knees at right angles and your feet on the floor, and that will improve your posture and reduce the strain on your back. Some of my friends and colleagues have been improvising stand-up workspaces to do some of their work. Research shows that standing up at work can help you stay healthy and enhance your mood. If you're not lucky enough to have a stand-up desk hidden away in a basement or a closet, you can improvise. One friend of mine used a small cabinet topped with a crate and then a leaf from her dining room table to create her own stand-up desk. And finally, remember to move during the day. Some of us may have a hard time staying at our desk when we work from home, but others of us may find that we never get up. If you're someone who is tied to your desk all day, set yourself reminders to get up once an hour to stretch, take a walk, and get moving. This will help you clear your mind and make you more productive when you do sit back down. We'll go on to the next slide next. In the objectives for the day, Alan mentioned establishing a process for work time. I want to talk a little bit about that now. When we're going to the office, normally, we have time to transition from home to work. It may, for some of us, involve a subway ride. For others of us, it may be a commute in the car, and maybe even a stop for a cup of coffee. You're at home, you travel, and then you're at work, and you start your day. It's important now that we're at home to create a similar process for your day, even though you're never leaving home, so you can clearly define what is work time and what isn't. Otherwise, you may find yourself having a hard time getting yourself settled into work, or you may find yourself working all the time. If you're balancing work with homeschooling your children or taking care of someone in your home, you might not have a regular one single work day that you can complete in a solid 8-hour period. You may find yourself having 2 or 3 different work times. So this process is something you might do more than once a day, but I want you to talk a little bit about it. First, I want you to start thinking about how you transition into work mode in the morning or when you first start working. What is it that you do? First, you may do the breakfast dishes and then pour yourself a cup of coffee, and then move all of your work items into place if you're using something like a kitchen table or a dining room table. Or maybe you work out, and then you shower, and then you check your email on your phone. When you create a work process, or a transition to work process, I want you to do these activities in the same way each day and build a habit. It should be like your commute. When you're done with this process, you know you're ready to start into your day and get working. And then the second part of your work time is your daily schedule. And we're going to spend the next few slides talking about how you want to go about optimizing your daily schedule. So I won't talk about that now, but that's your active work time. When your work time is coming to an end, think about your wrap-up routine. Just like your transitioning into work routine, this is a routine that will help you transition out of work. What are the things that you do at the end of the day? It may be reviewing a to-do list and finishing anything that absolutely needs to get done on that day or during that work period. It may be one final look at your email. But once you have accomplished that, it's important to sign off. Actively leave work. If you even need to say out loud, "I am leaving work now," I want you to do that. Your surroundings no longer signify that you're no longer working, but it's important still to transition out of work mode and back into home mode. This gives you a chance to really focus when you're there, but then give your brain a rest when you leave, and helps you to be more productive once you sign back in. Before we start talking about the next section, I want you to take a moment to think about your current workspaces and the way you currently transition, and share with others some of the things that you have found successful. I'll give you about half a minute or 45 seconds to think, and then type some of your suggestions into the chat box. So think a little bit. What is it that you do to transition to work, and what are some of the things that have really worked for you for creating your workspace? And please give me, please put some of those suggestions for others into the chat box, and we'll read them off. Remember to send them to all panelists. Some of you are sending them just to one person, so it's important to put them up to all panelists. Okay, while people are typing, I'm going to read out some of the things I see. So some people are still going out and driving and getting coffee every morning, using the end of a dining room table to keep things. There are people who are already using work bags to keep everything organized. Let me just hold on. So fine. One person said, and I think this is a really important thing, not staying in my pajamas. I think one of the things that is a really good way to transition from being at home to being in the office is actually to dress. You may not need to dress as nicely as you might have done when you go into the office, but it can be helpful to have work clothes and home clothes. And for some people that I have worked with and that I've talked to about it, even that act of when you leave work, getting out of your work clothes and changing back into your comfortable clothes can be really useful. Some people are, making, one of the things we didn't talk about, but I think is a valid point here, is thinking about where your Wi-Fi is the strongest. If you're in a larger space, you may have parts of the home that have really good Wi-Fi and some parts of the home that have less good Wi-Fi. So you want to keep that. Think about that when you're creating your space, because you may lose connectivity during some of these meetings. But there are a bunch of other suggestions here that have come in. I'm not sure we can read them all, but maybe we can share some of them later so people can do it. But people who are using yoga videos to relax after work or to transition in the morning, that's a good way to do it. There are lots of really good ideas here, and I'll talk to Blake and Rachel and Alan, and I will talk about a way to share those so that we can get them out to everybody. So thank you very much for all of your ideas. There are some really great ones there. So now we're going to move into thinking about the daily schedule. So organizing your time can really be hard, even at the best of times, but now it's really, for most of us, harder than ever. And on top of things, we've really been operating in crisis mode for the last 2 weeks. So adjusting to new realities and conflicting priorities have really taken a toll on how we organize our time. And we've been, I've even myself have had a very hard time creating a predictable daily schedule. But a daily schedule that you can predict and has a constant routine to it can be the best way to manage your time effectively. So, now that we've had a few weeks in this, and the crisis may not have, not gone, but may have normalized a little bit, it's a good time to really think about creating a schedule that works for you. And we want you to be intentional when you're developing a schedule. So take into account a number of key factors. Think about the schedule of other people living in your home, not just your children, but other adults, and as I mentioned, even your pets. When will they be looking for attention? When will they need your help? Or even when are they going to be most likely to interrupt you? Then think about your team's typical schedule. When do your team members usually start and end? When do they like to meet? Has this changed now that people are working remotely? Is it likely to change again? Your clients' needs or the needs of collaborating agencies will also impact your schedule, so you'll need to take those into account. All of these things will impact how you structure your day. So from this list, you're going to be able to identify the times in your day that you need to be able to collaborate with the other members of your team, and you'll also be able to identify when you need to be out of the office because of either your home responsibilities or other needs. Or even if you're going to be in the office, you know that you're likely to be interrupted, so it's not a good time to get work done. But that's only part of the picture. Just because your time is open, it doesn't mean that it's productive time for you. To identify when you might be most productive, you need to consider the times of the day when you have the most energy and the times of the day when you slump. This is considered your natural energy rhythm or your biorhythm. If you've never really thought about your natural rhythm, or you're not keenly aware of it, you can track your own energy for 4 or 5 days. And to do this, set a timer and stop each hour and reflect back on how your energy was for the past 60 minutes. Then rate it. Was your energy high? Was it medium? Or was it really low? The high energy times are when you're going to want to schedule work that requires focus and concentration. So if you look at the first line of this chart, the person here has high energy in the late morning and in the early afternoon. In the early morning, is a low energy time, and the late afternoon, this person is fading or has maybe medium or even lower energy. And then you need to match this with when your work environment is most conducive to productivity. This is when your office is available to you without interruptions. If you rate something high, then that's a time when you'll be able to work productively and you won't have any interruptions. If you rate it medium, when there are few interruptions, but you can still get a few things done, low times are when you need to be out of the office or when you have existing meetings. In this chart, the environment is most conducive to productivity in the late morning. Next, you want to compare the two. So in the chart, late morning is high for both energy and productivity, so it's a good time to schedule important work. If there's no good fit, if there's nowhere where you're both high on both lines, see if you can renegotiate with others in your home to get more quality time during your high energy time, or see if there's another place you could move to during that time so you're not going to be interrupted. Then you want to look at your workflow. What do your staff, colleagues, clients need from you during your high energy times? If any of that is somewhat routine, maybe a daily check-in or regular email or phone calls, can you shift it to your low energy times? Or can you find somebody to trade with? Maybe they'll cover routine matters like your phone and your email during this time slot, and you'll do the same for them during their high energy times. Now you've protected your high energy time as much as you can. The next step is to make the most use of it, knowing what your most important tasks are and which require the most concentration. Make sure you schedule these during high production times. That will take some prioritizing. I'm going to turn it over to Alan now so he can give you some tips on how to prioritize your work.
Thanks, Jenny. Somebody said that they had a hard time hearing me, so I talked a little louder, but if anyone still has trouble, please let me know, and I'll increase it more. Okay, we often make a mistake of looking at work that's urgent and calling it important. If someone needs an answer or information right away, we assume it's important and we drop other things to address it. It's clearly not urgent. It's clearly urgent, but is it important? What will be the negative consequence of not responding? Someone might truly be harmed, and thus it is important, or the person asking for our help may be annoyed, which is not desirable, but doesn't necessarily make this task important. Failure by other people to plan well doesn't necessarily create an emergency for you. It's difficult to say no, but think of it as saying yes to something that will make a bigger difference. Review your list of important tasks and be clear about why the good things are that will result from you getting these done. So say yes to them and say no to other requests that do not have the same payoffs. It's important to protect your decision and your schedule. You need to be available enough, but not all the time. Let others know about your priorities and your schedule before they interrupt you. You've taken time to set your priorities, so don't be so quick to drop them to meet someone else's emergency. Keep your eye on your goals and your team and agency's mission and core values. Do your priorities align with that? If so, they are probably the right things to work on, and you might explain that to whoever's trying to shift your priorities. Sometimes the new priorities are life and death. They may be critical to success, but sometimes they're just you taking on someone else's problem that they should be solving themselves. Once your to-do list is set for the day, monitor it to see how your reality fits in with your plans. What worked as planned? What didn't get done? What got in the way? Keep a list of interruptions, distractors, and roadblocks. Review how you estimate the time needed for different tasks now that you're working remotely. See if a pattern develops over time and find ways to address these proactively. Here's a form you might want to use. The first thing to do at the start of each day or at the end of the prior day is to brainstorm all the tasks you want to accomplish in the day. Think about what didn't get done the day before, what new tasks have popped up, and what important tasks you're still working on. Jot that list on a piece of paper. Then enter these tasks on your planner form in the planned activity column. Put them in the order you want to accomplish, putting the more complex or challenging tasks in your high production time zones. Then go back to the first column and estimate how long each task will take. Put a running schedule in starting with when you start your day. Be conservative with your time estimates. Things generally take longer than we expect, And if they take less time, you're ahead of the game and less stressed. One trick is to make planning your day the first task. Set 15 minutes for it, get it done in 10, and you've already completed something and you're ahead of schedule. It's a little mind game I play with myself, but it gets my day off to a good start. Now you have your daily plan in place, and as you go through the day, enter in the actual activity column what you actually did during that time period and how long things actually took. As you review these time logs, you'll begin to see patterns in terms of what's stealing your time. Protecting your time is always a challenge, and working remotely adds another level of complexity. Let's look at this further and discuss a few strategies for reducing interruptions and time stealers. When you're working remotely, people can't see that you're deep in thought or that your door is closed, so they're likely to call at the wrong time. One way to prevent this is to let people know when you are available for a drop-in, which should be your lower energy time, and how they can best drop in. Either they can make an appointment in the times that you prefer, or they can drop in during open office hours that you set. If you use Zoom, you can use the waiting room feature for this, so only one person can drop in at a time. And you can see that others are queuing up, so you'll know if you need to cut visits short. If anybody has questions about this, we'd be happy to answer it at the end of the session. Another great strategy for reducing interruptions is batching. Ask the people who tend to talk with you regularly to save up all their questions or concerns until they have one that's truly urgent. Now when they call, it's not just for one question, it's for a whole bunch of issues. Likewise, if you save all your questions for them, when they call you, you can pull out your list and go through all the issues on the same call. You've now turned multiple interruptions into one interruption. For all scheduled phone calls or meetings, even a quick one-on-one check-in, create an agenda in advance. It can be just a few short bullets. It lets both parties know what will be discussed and allows them to take time before the call to think through the issues and gather all needed information. This will make the call faster and more efficient. It's best if this agenda can be a shared document so both parties can add to it prior to the call. Meetings in general can be a great time stealer, and we're going to talk more about that in a couple webinars from now. We talk about managing your team remotely. But another strategy for dealing with interruptions and time stealers is learning to say no or not now. As we mentioned earlier, it's easier to think of this as saying yes to something else. Be ready to quickly explain to the interrupter what you're doing and why it's important for you to finish this before you start something else. Jenny's going to give us a couple of examples of this.
This task is complicated and I need to tackle it when my energy is at its best. Or I could say, I promised this to someone by the end of the day and I'm concerned that I won't finish it if I focus on your concern. Or I could also say, this task I'm working on will really help so-and-so out, and she needs me to get it done as soon as possible.
Great job, Jenny. So saying no is hard, and we need to practice it, and again, think of it as saying yes to something else. If you keep your mission and core values in mind, and you see how your tasks relate to that, it gives you a more firm foundation for saying no to many interruptions. Another good strategy for dealing with time stealers is to arrange coverage so crises don't interrupt you. We found this to be a concern with the coaching services we offer. People set an appointment with us, but then at the last minute something comes up and they need to reschedule. That's frustrating both to them and to us. So having a partner with whom you can turn coverage of crises over to will help you maintain more control over your important tasks and your time. One strategy that people think is a time saver is multitasking. Those of you who read your mail while on a phone call or on a webinar may think you're doing two things at once. What you're really doing is jumping back and forth between two tasks. This leads to a higher error rate, lower production, and greater exhaustion. It's not much of a time saver. Being able to stay focused on one task at a time greatly increases efficiency and reduces burnout. Finally, one of the biggest interrupters and time stealers is email. In our earlier webinar on managing your staff remotely, we recommended setting up a communication protocol to help manage this. We recommended that you let everyone who you correspond with on a regular basis Know that email is not a time-sensitive tool for you, and you'll reply to emails within 2 to 3 hours. That way you don't have to check it constantly. If they want a faster reply, they should text you, and if they need an immediate reply, they can call you. If you follow this advice, then you can turn off your email notification. Turn off both the sound and the visual ghost that floats onto your screen. You know that if it's an urgent issue, they'll text you or call you, so the email can wait. And then set specific times in your daily to-do list for checking email between other tasks. Give yourself 10 or 15 minutes each time to go through your email quickly. Reply to the easy ones, delete the ones you don't need, and schedule more complicated ones into your schedule later or even the next day. Maybe give a quick reply that you'll get back to them later or tomorrow. If you frequently receive emails that need to be attended to the same day and take some time, then give yourself longer email breaks with time allocated for responding right away, emails that can't wait. Okay, so that wraps up our session today. We'd like to, again, thank OVS for this great training and technical assistance program where they have these webinars. We'll be happy to take questions, so if you could chat them into the box to all panelists if you haven't yet done so. And those of you that are leaving early, if you want to be sure to fill out the evaluation that'll pop up when you're done, we'd appreciate it. We've tried to keep these webinars short and focused, and this leaves us about a half an hour for questions. So we're happy to stay on and answer any questions you might have. Slides from today's presentation are available. I think that was just posted on the chat box.
And we will also try and put some that I know Alan shared that great slide that had for how to manage your time to do use your daily time planner, and we'll try and share that as well. But a model for it is in the handouts.
When we publish today's recording on our YouTube channel, I can always put links to those in our show notes as well. It looks like
somebody shared a tip for enforcing personal boundaries. If I tell my superiors my personal cell and phone calls and texts happen outside normal work schedule. Oh, they're asking for a tip for personal boundaries. Yep, good point. Some people have a work and a personal cell, but most of us only have one. And I guess if you took the stress management webinar, or if you want to take a look at the slides, there's a lot of good information about how negative stress is and the negative impact it has on us. So what I'd like to tell my boss is, I understand there's things happening all the time. You've got thoughts on your mind. Please email me your thoughts if they can wait till the next day, and I will look at them. And this way, you don't have to wait to contact me, and I don't have to read it. I don't check my work email after hours. And you need to understand that I'm trying to take good care of myself. I'm trying to do a good job for you and for our clients. And that requires me getting enough break time to recuperate and recover. I'm home with my family, and there are things I need to attend to, or I'm home alone and I need to connect with people in my off hours so I don't go stir crazy. So I think it's fine to own for yourself your need to have some balance and some boundaries so that you can take good care of yourself and do a good job for your boss. So I think that's kind of how I approach it. And I'd encourage you to be assertive. That's an real important boundary to set.
And then if you find yourself somebody who is working all the time, be cognizant of when you're emailing and texting people, knowing that people may take it very seriously. So is it something that you can make a note of and then get to it in the morning? So you're turning your brain off and you're allowing your staff or your colleagues to do the same thing. So sometimes it's a habit that the whole staff gets into. So try and set that aside. We're used to constant communication now, and so it's easy to use everything at our fingertips and get things off of our chest. But even if you start the email and then set it on delay so they don't get it until the next morning, then that will help them with their boundaries and you with your boundaries.
Yeah, I write a lot of emails and I save it in my draft. And in the morning when I get started, I just send out all my drafts. So Somebody shared that today is Bring Your Child to Work Day, so I'd like to say hello to their child who is listening in and hope they can get some tips from this. And for many of us, it's bringing our child to work every day now, and that gets stressful for everybody. So again, really encourage you to take time with your family and take breaks for yourself. Earlier, I mentioned the waiting room in Zoom, and nobody asked about this, but I just want to share it because I think it's a great thing. If I tell people, from 2 to 3 in the afternoon is a great time for you to drop in on me. If you have any questions, I'm going to leave my Zoom meeting open, and if I don't let you in right away, it means somebody else is there ahead of you. I'll finish up with them and I'll get to you. So while I'm having a conversation with another person, I can look up in the corner and there's this list of who's waiting. And when I see somebody waiting, I can finish up one conversation and let them in. I use that with coaching, so in case the first coaching session goes long, the second person doesn't come right into our session. So it's a nice way for people to, and that's when I would, if I gave you that time from 2 to 3 to drop in, I'd be checking my email then, I'd be, filing, I'd be doing things that I can easily be interrupted, the low complexity tasks, the routine tasks. And so I get interrupted, I chat with somebody, but this way, from 1 to 2, when I really need to focus, nobody's dropping in on me. So play with the Zoom thing, and you'll see there's a security button. If you click on that, you'll see an enable waiting room, and that'll give you that control over people dropping in.
And Alan, since you mentioned the coaching, if you are having trouble managing your time or even having some of the conversations either with your staff or your supervisors about boundaries and time management, the coaching sessions that Blake mentioned earlier, and I think we have, if we go down to the next slide or 2, I think there's information about it again. It's really a good opportunity to talk with one of us about it, to help you brainstorm or troubleshoot how to have those conversations, or maybe to how to work your time better. If you're, even after listening to this, you have some questions or things that have come up with you that might be different than what others have. We're happy, we have spent, I know on the coaching calls, I've done quite a few over the last 2 weeks, and a number of them we've talked about time management issues, or having conversations with a supervisor or with a staff member who is stealing a lot of time with their own issues, and so how do you balance those out? So if you feel like you're having issues and you want to talk to somebody about it, the individual coaching is great for that, and then the group coaching is a good opportunity to share ideas with each other. So Alan or I we are in the group coaching to help facilitate and help move things along, but really it's an opportunity for you to share things with other people working in victim service programs across the state. What's working, what you're having issues with, and how you can benefit each other with the knowledge that the things that you've tried and the things that are working for you.
Okay, so we're happy to wait a couple more minutes if there are any other questions, or if you have some ideas. Love to hear your own thoughts on what's worked for you. Somebody just commented that in terms of setting up my space, I had to make sure my space was clean and organized. And again, for a lot of us, it's organizing it in a new way. And that's important. And again, if you're sharing your space with your family, so it's the dining room table during part of the day and part of the day your office, to take a few minutes and plan. Give yourself a few minutes to kind of clear it up and set it up to be your office. And then, as Jenny said, when you're done, to close it out, pack it up, and make that kind of formal transition. Somebody else has the link to stress management webinar available. Blake, you want to chime in where they can find that?
All of our webinars the recording links are available on our OVS training page, which is just ovs.ny.gov/training. I can put a link in the chat feature just a second as well. But even today's webinar, once its recording is finished and published to the YouTube training channel, we link it all on that training page. And the coaching.
There it is on your screen now, the link to register for the webinars or to download. There's the handouts, and there's also a recording of the webinar, so it's great.
Next week we'll be talking about financial sustainability for victim assistance programs. So it's a little less, most of the webinars that Alan and I have done, and the one that was on Tuesday really is about this remote working environment. The financial sustainability one is one that we had planned before all of this happened. We're really talking about, ways you can look at your funding and plan for financial sustainability long term, knowing that some funding streams may be less sure than they have been in the past. So, what are some things that you can do to start thinking about the financial sustainability for your organization?
Yeah, this is a big one for you guys. If you're interested in it, please join us next week. An advisory bulletin just went out about the status of VOCA funding, and there's a lot of concern and questions about it. So we hope you'll join us next week too.
Somebody just had a question about taking and requesting personal time off during this time, because you shouldn't do it because you're working from home. And I think that, we're not, I think that one of the things that everybody is having a hard time with is separating this idea of home. And, we're not at home. It's not a benefit necessarily for us to be working from home. It's something that we need to do now. And so your benefits, taking and requesting personal time off, is important if you need it. If people need, I talked to somebody last week who took the middle of the week off. It was her kids' spring break. And it was important that she have time, that she wasn't expected to answer phone calls and respond to email. Personal time off is as important now as it was before, and it may be more important. We may need time to just shut our brains off. So just like it's important to get up and walk away from your computer and to take breaks, all of that will help refresh you and make you more productive. So I would say it may feel unsettling, but it still is important to do.
And again, as I said earlier, with stress, it's important to advocate for yourself. Many of you are advocates for others. It's important to advocate for yourself. And somebody else just shared that they've been encouraged to take personal time off and went to a 32-hour work week so they could find some balance in their life. They're normally a 40-hour employee. So they did a kind of a semi-permanent reduction in hours to give them a little more space to be with their family and manage things. Somebody else added that they have a family briefing every morning to review their daily schedules with each other, who has Zoom meetings, who has webinars to attend, so they can be mindful of being quiet for each other. So again, if you have two working people or your kids are going to school on the computer, being able to every morning or every evening planning for the next day to make sure everybody aligns, and that's a great idea.
That's a great idea. I love that.
And I think people are more forgiving now when you have to put yourself on mute to get some of the background noise to quiet down, or to move a child or a pet out of the meeting. So, make sure, take time to do that. Just excuse yourself for a second. I even had to do it during this webinar because there was a lot of background noise that was starting in my own space, despite all of the warnings and the signs that I put up all around about this webinar. So it happens to everybody.
Yep.
We will hang around for the next few minutes in case people come up with, have additional questions or things they want to share. But I thank everybody for being part of it. We want to put the last slide up that has Alan and my email addresses, so that either if you're interested in taking part in the Training and Technical Assistance Request Program and you want more information about that, you can email either one of us. We can help walk you through and figure out whether or not what type of project might work best for you. If you have questions that came up from this webinar, and as Alan mentioned earlier, right on the Calendly link, you can link right into, you can set up times with, if you just want to do an individual coaching session, you can click on that, but you can also use that link and it will set up a meeting with us, and you can use that to talk about if the training program or consulting or the individual coaching. So you can use that for anything.
And somebody asked earlier how many people are on the webinar, and just so you don't think you're alone, I think it was about 260 or 280, something like that at peak. So there's quite a few people that are finding time management to be a challenge. And we have another question that came in. It's hard sometimes to communicate to your supervisor your frustration about going to work physically during these times. Any recommendation regarding how to ask to work from home fully? Yeah, I've talked with a number of people in coaching who are wrestling with that, and some agencies some people prefer to go to the office. They need to get out of their house. They might be alone and happy to go in somewhere else, or they have a noisy environment, or they don't have the computers. So I think one thing, if you're a leader and if you're not, to encourage your leadership to kind of poll everybody and say who would prefer to be home and who would prefer to be in the office. And the more, if enough people prefer to be in the office to cover, then the people who prefer to be home can be home full time. So one way is to try to work that out collaboratively as a team. And to me, that's the optimal approach. If it turns out that, you need to be in the office because there's certain things you have to do, can you prioritize? So I'll come in just to do these things, or can you be creative? Instead of coming in, with Zoom, and you can take a picture and text it to me, or you can scan it and email it to me so I can see the paper. And maybe it's a little inconvenience for the person doing that, but share your needs of why you need to be at home. I've got little kids. I've got ill family member. I'm a high risk person. I don't feel comfortable coming in. So again, speak for yourself. There's a reason why you want to be home. It's not just because you want to have your feet up on the desk with nobody seeing it, because that's what some people may think of. So talk about what's your reasons for being home, and then help your boss think through a creative way to cover the office, what has to be done. And again, there are people who are happy to be in the office, and maybe you can take more phone calls and they can do more of the paperwork and the face-to-face work, and that could work out ideally. So the person who I spoke with said it really worked out in their office, that some people wanted to be there, some didn't, and they were able to come up with a schedule that made everybody fairly happy. So I would certainly try that approach, and also advocate for yourself. You have a legitimate reason you want to be home, you need to share that, and hold your ground. It's you have a right to be safe, and if the office isn't safe, or your children wouldn't be safe, these are in my opinion, and I don't work for your agency, so don't quote me, but I feel that that's a very valid.
Right. But you do want to be also sensitive to some of the pressures that your supervisor might feel. So if there's a requirement to have coverage in the office, and they have to have somebody there, if everybody wants to work at home, then there may be some pressures, and they may feel required to have some coverage on some days. So just be sensitive to some of the pressures that the supervisor might also have on them for coverage in the office.
And somebody just asked a great question, which is great ammunition for you. Said, is it unusual to be more productive at home? And the answer is no. Many people find, if they have a decent environment for working, that they're much more productive at home because they have no interruptions. They don't have to take time to commute, to get settled in, to get out for lunch and come back. So they're there, and they can make much more use of their day, and in fact, often will work a little more than 8 hours. They're not commuting. Some people have an hour commute each way, and this saves over 2 hours in their day. So that's another argument that many people, and you can speak for yourself if it's true to your boss, I'm much more productive at home. I can get a lot more done. Give me more work, and I'll work from home. So that's another great argument.
So one thing that I think we talk about in many of the other webinars that we've done is we'll talk about people's communication and work styles. And there are some people for whom this time at home is much more difficult because they like that constant interaction. So the time in the office and interacting with coworkers and brainstorming in person when they have an issue. And so those people are maybe some of the people that are reaching out more often because they really need those connections. But there are others of us that don't have that type of work style, and we may be somebody who likes to come into our office, shut the door, and get the work done. And if you're one of those people, then that for whom you really like to go sit down somewhere and crank out your work, then it can be easy to be productive at home if you have, as Alan said, the right environment for it. So this may be there are people out there who said this is the best thing that ever happened to me. I love working from home. I can really get stuff done. But just be sensitive to your colleagues for whom this might be a more difficult time.
And again, for those of you that need that connection that Jenny talked about, Zoom, Google Hangouts. There's lots and lots of tools out there to be able to brainstorm together, to schedule meetings, to chat with people at work about work. Those are all very legitimate activities and important to do in this time. Okay, we're coming up on 2 o'clock, so thank you all for hanging in. Quite a few of you have stayed on, and we're happy that you found this helpful. Thank you all for your positive comments. Please do the evaluation at the end, and Blake, I'll leave it to you to.
Okay.
Thank you.
We hope we'll see you at one of the future webinars. Go ahead, Blake. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Thank you guys for awesome presentation today. Join us next week for the Financial Sustainability for VAPs webinar, and check us out online for more information. Please do your evaluations. We really do appreciate them. So otherwise, everyone have a great, wonderful afternoon. Take care. Be safe.
Okay.